Hey everybody, welcome to the Resistance broadcast. Thank you so much for joining us. It has felt like a long time since a traditional episode of TRB.
Mhm.
So allow me to say, we are back, baby! Yes, that's right. We are here. We have the segments are back. We're dusting off Will of the Force. Ask the Resistance via Blue Sky. Thank you to people who sent in questions there. We haven't had a regular. We had the news episode this past Monday, so I hope
Mhm.
you check that out. We have more
Mhm.
news to talk about today, but we haven't had a regular TRB. I don't want to say regular, but we haven't had a typical TRB episode since like around Thanksgiving. So it's a long time,
It's been
but
a
here
while,
we
yeah.
are, Lacey. We are back. How are you?
I'm good. I'm looking forward to the Super Bowl this weekend.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I'm also doing a joint kind of birthday brunch at my house because there are 1, 2, 3, like 5 or 6 birthdays in February for my family. So
Wow.
instead of doing individual stuff, I was like, okay, I'm doing a brunch on this day. Please show up. And so that's what we're doing.
All right. Very
Mhm.
nice. I like brunch. Brunches are nice.
I'm doing a
Are you?
waffle bar.
Oh, waffles are good. Yeah, waffles are good. Are
Mhm.
you a mimosa gal? Do you do that whole deal?
Oh, yes. Mimosas all day. I can't
Well, I know
wait.
you're not a
I
big
have
drinker, so I didn't know if you like did
but
the
I do
champagne.
mimosas.
All right.
I actually found this really good, prosecco because I don't use champagne, I use prosecco for my, mimosas, and it's from Francis Ford Coppola.
Oh,
He
interesting.
started
Yeah.
making prosecco, and it is so smooth. It is so good. I had a bottle at Christmas. I
Wow.
it's been sitting on my counter waiting for my birthday thing. I'm looking forward to it.
That's like when my buddy Chad got me and Kathleen a bottle of Cristal for a housewarming gift,
Wow.
and we just yeah. And you like I'm not a crystal person at all. So we were like, when the hell are we ever gonna use this? Like when's the right time to use this? And we
You
wound
ever
up
had that
using
whiskey I got you?
yes, that is
Was it good?
being used still. Yeah, I usually only bust it out when if friends come over or something.
Mm.
I don't like sit I don't sit and drink whiskey by myself. But yeah, it is good. And the good thing about whiskey is, it doesn't go bad. You
I just
keep
thought it
it
was such a cool
stored right.
concept.
Anyway, yeah. The bottle was really cool. I have it down there
They listened
somewhere on my
to
bar
I think
somewhere,
they
but
listened to Metallica when they made it.
oh, really?
Yeah, it says on the side, like, what they listened to when they bottled that bottle. That was the
Oh,
gift, is like, "Oh, it's specifically Metallica that they listened to."
very cool. Yeah.
Okay, someone
Um,
missed that gift. Someone missed the point
I
of the
was like, I'm just
whiskey.
gonna open this.
Look on the side of the bottle, it will tell you, like, the song and, like, the band of that they
Oh,
played
all
when they
right.
made the whiskey.
I'll have to
Yeah.
look
That was
closer.
the gimmick. Oh my
Oh, I
god.
thought it was just like, here's a cool looking bottle of whiskey, and I was like, sweet, right on.
Mm.
Um, so we wound up using that bottle for like a New Year's Eve one year. And I drank Cristal, so that was fun.
Maybe
But
you should look at
uh,
the bottle next time.
I will look at. I'll see what song they talked about. Lacey, there's a lot to get into,
Mhm.
but first we want to thank everybody for being with us, listening, watching. Means so much to us as always. Make sure you're subscribed to the Resistance broadcast on your favorite podcast app. It's free on Apple, Spotify, everywhere you get your podcasts, and of course the video version if you're watching. Hey everybody, youtube.com/@TRB podcasts. And then check out our website, trbpodcast.com. We have new merch coming for the site there. The Galactic Goonies stuff is gone. Uh, may return one day. We will see. But check out the site. You can also access the podcast right there. We have a lot of other stuff coming. I may start writing before Celebration. So trbpodcast.com is a nice spot for us. And then Patreon too, of course, which we'll get into in a little bit with Will of the Force. But
Mhm.
we do have a winner to reveal for the Galactic Goonies treasure hunt. And the answer which a lot of people submitted. So thank you. That was so cool. The
It was
amount
a
of
ton,
emails
yeah.
we got, unbelievable. The fact that people that just show that they were in it from beginning to end, which is like the whole theme of that. And the answer was bad eggs. So the first letter of every answer to the trivia questions spelled out bad eggs, which was uh, a reference to the sea shanty of Pirates of the Caribbean, specifically Jack Sparrow at the end of Curse of the Black Pearl when he says, and really bad eggs. So the pirate theme there. I know it's used in other spots too, but thanks to everybody who played along. And if you didn't win, don't worry. More giveaway contests and stuff are coming. As you saw, we did our first one for Nerdy and Nice recently. More coming there too. But the winner is Ray Morse. Ray, we will be in touch with you very soon to get your information and send you the treasure, which is the Lego Star Wars Onyx Cinder ship in its original state with all the pirate armor on it and stuff. I wonder if you could build both versions, but and then TRB merch and maybe some Galactic Goonies stuff. But thank you to everyone who entered. Congratulations to Ray, and more contests coming. But now, Lacey, it is time to get into the show, and we have brought back one of the most favorite segments on TRB, Will of the Force.
I fear nothing, for all this, as the Force wills it.
Yeah, so Will of the Force is back. Hooray. Before we get into it, there are lots of ways you can support us here at TRB. You could like this video, comment, subscribe, leave a review on audio platforms like Apple Podcasts or Spotify. It really helps us. Let us know how we're doing. And then also with the algorithms and whatnot, lets people find us, which is great. You could also support us on Patreon if you're looking for a little bit more of the community, or you want to help us with our dream of doing this full time and traveling and covering events. You can head over to patreon.com/TRB podcasts. Starting at $5 a month, you get to participate in stuff just like this, Will of the Force, and submit questions. And then as you go up in the tiers, you get more perks like video episodes or kind of video chats with us, Discord access, merchandise, etc. So Will of the Force is a segment that's been kind of a fan favorite for many, many years, where we get posed these will they, won't they scenarios, and we give our answers and discuss it a little bit. But yeah, you guys get to submit if you're part of Patreon. So first up, we have a Patreon submission from Mark at the Kind of Vacants.
Mark!
Brought
Thanks,
that
buddy.
back. What up, Mark? He asks, will Lucasfilm ever produce a George Lucas biopic focused on the making of Star Wars? John.
Oh, me first, huh?
Hmm?
I'm gonna say no, mainly because there's so many documentaries that they've made that have told that story in reality and documented history and archive footage that I think whatever they would be able to do with that would sort of fall flat a bit, if that makes sense. Like
Mhm.
sort of how like when I would criticize that movie Bohemian Rhapsody and like the last part of the movie is the recreation of the Live Aid show. I'm like, you could watch the actual Live Aid show of Freddie Mercury and actually Queen doing what they replicated and lip synced to in this movie. So I think it's a cool idea, Mark, and I'd watch it. You know that, and they'd probably, find ways to take us deeper into it. But I just think with Empire of Dreams and Light and Magic and all the other, and the making of Star Wars books and all the other documentaries we've seen, I think we know that story by now, and we could always revisit those. And I think because those exist, it would hurt the chances of a biopic being received very well. So that's my take. I don't think that they will. If they do, I'll check it out, but I don't think they will. Lacey, what do you think?
I am going to disagree with you. I think they will eventually, but I think it's going to be more someone playing George.
I think
Like
that's what he
not
means. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Because you made it sound like using biopic stuff in the sense of like footage. like
No, I
ILMs,
was saying the
light and
reason it
magic.
won't do well is because there is so much of that we
Oh, got it,
have.
got it, got it.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I could see this totally being a really Oscar-worthy movie of a guy that went out of his way to do his own thing and the drama around it. Because we know from people that have been on the show, like the wonderful JW Rinsler, who went on and on about, like, just kind of the crazy personalities and the drama and what we learned from, Light and Magic too. There's just a really good story there. So I think they will. I don't think in anytime soon, but I think they could definitely do that eventually, because it's an interesting story and so many people, both in the industry and out, but specifically like in the industry, like directors, writers, etc., have been so inspired by him and what he chose to do with his life that it would just be a shame if they never did anything. So I'm going to say they will.
Interesting.
And this was a
All
great
right.
question. Thank you, Mark.
Yeah.
Next is General Terry Mack. What up, Terry? She
Sure.
asks, will we see Jod Nawood in live action ever again? Which, by the way, I still love that we asked Christopher Ford, like, is that his name? And he's like, I'm not going to answer. And I was like, okay,
Right.
all right. I'll kick off this one. I think we will see him again. It leaves it kind of open-ended at the end of Skeleton Crew. I'm not sure we'll see him again in a Skeleton Crew specific project, but I think it would be a failure on Disney to not utilize Jude Law again when you already have him involved. So I'm going to say he will show up, and I think he could show up in a future, maybe Dave Filoni project.
Interesting.
John, what do you think?
Like the Filoni movie?
Yeah.
That's going to be a crowded room.
That's what Filoni loves. He loves a good many chefs in the kitchen.
Yeah. I think we will. I think Jude Law seemed to really enjoy the experience. I think he did such a great job giving us this very unique organic character created by Christopher Ford and John Watts.
Mhm.
I'm still hoping that there'll be a Skeleton Crew season 2.
Me
I
too.
think, numbers aside, I think that in such volatile times of fandom, post TLJ, it really felt like that show grabbed everybody and seemed like most people were enjoying it and
Mhm.
critics liked it. And I think that stuff does matter. Like with Andor, it was the lowest watched Star Wars series until The Acolyte. And we knew they were going to make a season 2 no matter what.
Mhm.
So that's not the factor there. But like sometimes it's not always going to be like you need to, from a viewership perspective, maybe take a step back so that you can take 5 steps forward. And what I mean by that is like with something like Andor, it gave Star Wars like a little pocket of prestige because it
Mhm.
does have, it's more of an artistic show. It's more serious,
Mhm.
heavy dialogue and that sort of thing. And it's Star Wars sort of saying like, we can do this too. We just
Mhm.
usually do this other stuff. And with Skeleton Crew, it's more of the classic brand of Star Wars, but critics and audiences all loved it. I don't know that its viewership has as much to do with it as it does the marketing and people seemingly, like we saw the numbers and people tried to like defend that. I don't know why people continually try to defend like giant major corporations like they're their cousin, but that's
In the
another argument.
box office, yeah, I don't understand.
Yeah, but like the subscriber counts down on Disney Plus, so I think it's a Disney Plus issue. And all you have to do is point at The Acolyte being the second highest viewed Disney Plus show, and it paled in comparison to a lot of other bigger shows on other platforms. So I think Skeleton Crew is great. I don't think it should be judged by its viewership. And the same goes for any of the stuff that comes out on Disney Plus, whether it's good or bad. If it's overwhelmingly liked by critics and audiences, but it's not watched a lot, that's not the show's fault. So I'm still hoping for a season 2. I'm hoping that's where we see him. If not, I do agree with you, Lacey. I hope we see him somewhere else because it's such a great character. We finally got a great villain that they didn't kill. Let him continue on, please.
Mhm. Yeah, Going off what you said, they really didn't do a lot of marketing for Skeleton Crew.
They didn't. No, there
And
was
they
no
did it
event.
right at the
Oh, well,
last minute. There
there
was
was
an
a
event, but it
Disneyland
was like a
event.
weird Disneyland, we're inviting 10 people event. Like,
Yeah.
it
It
wasn't
wasn't like
like
a
a full
premiere.
premiere like
Yeah.
they did with Acolyte.
Yeah.
I don't know, it just felt like it didn't get it felt like it didn't get the treatment that Star Wars stuff normally gets, and I don't know why, because I felt like it was a bigger, more cinematic project than other stuff that they had done. But then again, with the Acolyte premiere, they had, like, the NBA trophy there. I was like, "Why is this here?" And then you're like, "Oh, right, because Disney has the ABC NBA rights or whatever." And you're
That
like, "Okay,
was
but this doesn't make
random.
sense
Yeah.
that it's even there." And they're like, "Look at these people with lightsabers next to the NBA ball." And I'm like, look, like, I love a good marketing tie-in, a good marketing play. That was out of bounds, if you will. It made no sense why it was there, except they were like, "We have this trophy that we could have." Like, it didn't even have to go with what the actual show is. Like, sometimes they have a tie-in being like, "Oh, yeah, the kids play basketball on Skeleton Crew for, like, one scene, so then there's a basketball." Like, there was no reason for it to be there.
No, what was the game that
Um,
they do play? I forget. Neil mentions it a few times. It's not.
oh
It wasn't
oh,
like Spike
no.
Ball, but it was something. And he tells the girl about it. Remember?
Yes, 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 yes. But, like, just weird like, Disney's just been making some weird choices lately. Then they had, Anthony Mackie, like, jump out of a plane. They were like, "Yeah, he's like Captain America. He jumped out of a plane with the army." And I'm like, "Couldn't you, like, I don't know, host a screening with a bunch of underprivileged children that, like, would have really enjoyed seeing this superhero and have him show up and do, like, some pictures with them? Because that would make more of a splash than him jumping out of an army plane." Um,
Yeah.
just me, maybe. Just a thought.
Hmm.
Uh, but that's the end of my rant tonight about Disney's marketing. Anyway, our next question, it comes from Commander Joey Sack. What up, Joey? How's it going, man? He asks, will there be an animated show announced at Celebration Japan? You're up, John.
I mean, Bad Batch has been gone for a year now. I think so. I think that makes sense because I know Japan is like huge with animation, anime, um, and I think that's a good audience to introduce the next era in Star Wars. I'm sure there'll be Vision stuff because they renewed
Mhm.
that, right?
Mhm.
But I think a canon new series announcement makes sense. As far as when it comes out, I'm not sure. I hope it's like a brand new canon show. Like you and I were talking about, like why don't they do the Han, Luke, and Leia adventures the same way they did Obi-Wan and Anakin with the Clone
Or
Wars,
Luke's Jedi Academy or
or
something.
Luke's
Yeah.
Jedi Academy? Yeah, and then you can get Ben Solo in there, because we may see Tales of the Continue, and they'll do Tales of the Bounty Hunters or something, or Tales of
Mhm.
whatever. And I'm sure that will
Mhm.
come, but I'm hoping we get the announcement of the next canon series in the spirit of Rebels, Clone Wars, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna say yes. I think maybe they're gonna announce who the new Dave Filoni is for animation now that he's moved on up the chain, and we'll meet that person and then learn what the next big canon animated show is. So I'm gonna say yes.
I'm going to agree with you on this one. I think they absolutely will announce the next animated show. I agree that I would love for it to be Luke, Leia, and Han. I think it's an easy way to bring those characters back without, impacting anybody or causing any issue with the fandom because people are like, no, you can't recast. But if it's animated, it's a different story. And
Right.
there's people that do great impressions of those characters. Um, I would love to see something brand new and not something that's just like Tales of Blank or
Mm-hmm.
Bad Batch 7. I don't
Mm-hmm.
know. Like, I just want something different. And I hope it's not Clone Wars related. I hope it's not Order 66 related. I
Oh,
hope it's not clone related. I would like something brand new, fresh, different. Tell me
yeah, me too.
something completely out of nowhere that no one expected. Disney is known for their emotional connecting stories that have nothing to do with one another. They're animated features. So I don't know why Star Wars hasn't explored that same path at some point. I don't
In
think everything
canon.
has to right, and I don't think that and everything has to be connected. Now we are getting a new Vision series, which I'm sure we'll get some of it go either leading up to Japan or right after.
Mhm.
But yeah, I hope it's something brand new. Like show me new characters, maybe a different time frame, a different planet. Um and lean more into what we got with Skeleton Crew, which doesn't include Easter eggs or this is, clearly a connection to X. I loved that it wasn't connected to anything. I think it opens up the fandom to new people that aren't involved in Star Wars that feel like sometimes they can't connect because they don't know all of the intertwined stories and characters and oh this is a callback to this. It's intimidating. So I think it's time to bring in some new fans while also introducing diehards like us into new characters. Um I feel like sometimes they fall too much into the fan service nostalgic stuff and forget that they should be leading the charge on storytelling like they did originally with the original trilogy. But anyway, this actually leads into our next segment because one of the topics relates to this question. So thank you, Joey, for your question. And we're going to head into the resistance report.
It's the resistance.
Something about the old man Harrison Ford voice as Han Solo. Just I like it.
Me too.
All right, so we have stories to talk about. The first one is pretty direct and to the point. Oscar Isaac is heading to Star Wars Celebration Japan. Photo ops, autographs, making the money, doing the thing. But let the speculation begin, Lacey Gilleran. Obviously, that's awesome because we've already seen a lot of the TRB community booking their appointments with him.
Oh,
Finally,
yep.
Poe Dameron. I'm very fired up. I saw Andrew did. I saw a bunch of people did. I think that's so
Danny
cool.
did, yeah.
Yeah. But the thing that came top of my mind, which is probably on top of your mind, is does this mean something bigger? So I'll flip it to you, Lacey. Oscar Isaac heading to Celebration Japan. I don't believe Daisy Ridley has been announced yet,
She
nor
has not.
anyone else of that grouping.
Yeah, not of sequel trilogy. You
Right.
have Alan Tudyk, Diego Luna, Anthony Daniels, Ashley Eckstein,
Sam Witwer.
Sam Witwer, Mads Mikkelsen, Manny Jacinto,
Oh, right.
Tim Morrison's going. The funny thing is their website goes show all guests, and they only have a couple guests here listed. To
Well,
which my
maybe more
response is
coming.
like, oh no, because they've definitely announced more. They just didn't add them to their website.
Oh, okay.
So
Well,
yeah, it's weird.
Oscar Isaac, were you excited to hear that he's going to be there? And do you, what is your speculation on if that could mean anything more or not?
Yeah. Yeah, I was I feel like one of the first people that saw it, just happened to be online at the right time and saw the announcement come through, and I was like, "What?" And that's actually what I tweeted out was, "What?" with a bunch of
Mhm.
T's because it was totally unexpected. We've joked on this podcast numerous times about how Oscar Isaac said he wouldn't come back to Star Wars, he wouldn't go to Disney Plus, which is funny because then he did the other thing. What was it?
Moon
Moonlight
Knight.
Night or whatever it was, Moon Knight.
Moon Knight.
Moonlight Night is from Sailor Moon, my bad. And he by the way, the character in Sailor Moon does have like the character Moonlight Knight from Sailor Moon looks just like that guy, like is dressed in
Oh.
the same outfit. So it was very interesting to me because I was like, is this a callback to this or is it influenced by this? But anyway, very hyped that he's going. I think the obvious thing that's like right in my face is that he's clearly coming back for the Rey movie and they're going to bring him out on stage and, be like, and Daisy's getting back with her original crew, which is
Mhm.
him and John Boyega, which is one of the things I was looking up is I couldn't remember, did they announce John Boyega already? I couldn't remember
No.
if they have or haven't,
Mm-mm.
because our buddy online, Red5, what up, man? He commented on my tweet and said he was talking to John Boyega at New York Comic Con, and John said he was coming to Tokyo.
Really?
John told him, I'll see you in Tokyo. I'm going to
He-
Celebration.
He's booked for C2E2 the week prior.
Yeah, well, he's
So-
going to Celebration right after because I guess Reed probably locked him in for multiple. Reed popped a Celebration, by the way, if people that don't know. Reed Pop probably locked him in for New York Comic Con, C2E2, and Star Wars.
Hmm.
But he replied to my tweet and said, yeah, because he had actually gone a little viral in the fall with his New York Comic Con tweet because John had retweeted him and say, hey, it was
Oh,
nice to
okay.
see you. Nice to be with fans again. Like, that was the tweet that had gone viral for a little bit.
Who is this? Who is this?
Our buddy Red5. We met him at Star Wars Celebration 2019 in Chicago. He took a picture with us.
Red5? Luke Skywalker himself?
No, he goes by Red5. Online.
It's just Red5? He has the handle Red5?
I can't think of his handle right off, but it is Red5. I can like look it up on my phone if you want, but I didn't
What
want
a
to like
scoop.
stop the show to
No, hey,
give him
Red.
credit.
Listen, Red Fox, Red
Hold on,
5.
let me give him his cred. He's my bud.
Well,
Let me give
I'll
him
fill
some
the dead
cred.
air by saying that is interesting then if he is also
Where is it? Where is
going.
it? Where is it? Red 5 strong.
Oh,
At
yeah, that
red
sounds
underscore
familiar. Yeah.
5, the number IVE strong.
Yeah, that handle sounds familiar. Yeah.
Yes, from New York, met him at Celebration. He said, quote, quote, Boyega told me at New York Comic Con he'll be in Tokyo for Celebration. One person missing, ...
Hmm.
Which means
Well,
he's saying Daisy isn't verified yet, but she should be.
unless she's filming a movie, there would be no
They're
other
not
reason
gonna
for her.
no, they're not going to do Celebration and not have Daisy there.
I understand,
But then again, she did do the last one and didn't do any photo ops either, so.
well, I just mean going there because if she is, I'm seeing like what movie she has upcoming. Everything she has right now is in pre-production. Oh, there is one. Women in the Castles in production. So maybe I'll check on the filming dates of that. But I agree, she has to be there. Hopefully she's there. And then if Boyega's telling Red 5 Strong that he will be in Japan, we got Oscar Isaac.
And he had a
Things are
full
heating
conversation
up.
with him, yeah, when he got his autograph. So I believe him because what does John have to hide? John's just like,
No,
whatever.
I agree.
And I
he knows
guarantee
people.
from my own experience, yeah, of working with Reed is that they tend to hold on to guests because they need stuff to, push tickets and spread stuff out so everything isn't all at once, especially if the show's not sold out. But yeah, no, I believe him, which to me screams the whole point of this conversation that they're both coming back for Daisy's movie. It takes 15 years in the future. I think there is a possibility that what could happen is what you kind of threw out there years ago, which was Poe dies in the first 10 minutes and it sets the score of like the risk of this evil baddie is like everybody's beloved Poe finally bites it like he was supposed to in TFA.
Yeah, sort of. Yeah,
And
like
sets the tone of like no one's safe.
yeah, exactly. Like build up the new villain by killing a fan favorite. Hello, Kylo Ren, Han Solo.
Yep.
Sort of like in wrestling when people put people over by they lost the match, but they did such a good job making the other person look good. It's sort of like that. Like you have to make a certain sacrifice. And in Star Wars, we know about villains like. There's two really big villains that's hard to live up to in this galaxy, Vader and Palpatine. So they were smart to do that with TFA. Like immediately everyone's like, I hate Kylo Ren. I hate that guy.
I hated him. I left TFA hating him.
Right. And he became a formidable villain. And
Mhm.
I think maybe we can get something like that. But man, just the thought of seeing the three of them on stage together
I would
again
love that.
and
Yeah.
learning more about the future here, because you have Simon Kinberg, who's doing a trilogy that people are saying is going to involve Rey, and then we have this new Jedi Order movie, which we'll get into more details in a minute about, because the writer talked about it.
I wonder
It's
if
all
Kinberg's taking
very
over
interesting.
the Patty Jenkins.
Well, Rogue Squadron?
Yeah. Because that was supposed to take place like after Rise of Skywalker. It was supposed to take place in that area about the pilots. So I'm wondering if, because I could see him taking that over, but which would then explain why Rey was there, as if it was about Rogue Squadron.
Are you talking about the
She-
Simon Kinberg movies?
Yeah.
But a trilogy? I don't know about that. A trilogy of Rogue Squadron?
All they
In-
need is the treatment. So I can only imagine so many times they get treatments and then they don't come, nothing comes of it, or it morphs into something else. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Anyway, that was a little bit of a tangent. That's all to say that I hope that's true. I hope we get to see them together again. I think also a lot of people were commenting to my tweet, at least, that they were like, oh, well, clearly, it's an anniversary for TFA as well. So the TFA anniversary panel, he could roll up with BB-8. And I'm like, yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, sure.
That's true. 10 years of TFA could be a thing.
Big theme of
panel.
the show. Yeah. And I think that's an easy one to kind of get everybody on board because everybody liked that movie when it came out. And BB-8 will probably be all over everything because he's such a lovable droid.
Well, if JJ chimes in with a video message, I hope people give him a nice ovation. That's all I'm going to say.
I'm sure they will. I've never seen anybody boo anything at Celebration. But
That's true.
I'm just saying I've never seen anybody. And like people cheered for Daisy Ridley and Kathleen Kennedy at the last Celebration. And there were all these YouTube videos being like, those people aren't really cheering. They boosted that audio. I was in the room, guys. It was loud. It was loud. I was screaming on everybody's videos, by the way. I can hear
absolutely
yelling.
Yeah. Crazy.
Yeah.
All right. So next story, I forgot I'm doing the news. Next story, George Nolfi recently not announced by Lucasfilm, but reported and then confirmed by Daisy Ridley on her Instagram, spoke about his approach to writing the script for the new Jedi Order Rey Skywalker movie. And this is from Film Stories. They had the interview with him and he brought it up. They didn't even ask him. So once he brought it up, they saw that had the opening and they asked him. So Lacey, did you check out what he had to say? Okay, I can start this one. So I remember on Monday talking about it. We were talking about George Nolfi and we were just not critical, but we were skeptical based on what he's known for doing, what Star Wars, especially like Rey, is sort of known for. And we were wondering, like, man, this is gonna be more of a heavy, personal, maybe darker story, serious story. But he had a lot to say, and it actually made me intrigued as to what he's gonna do. And some of my takeaways from it was he was talking about when he was filming the movie Elevation and how that's a very human story about the human race, and he's big on metaphors, and that's a big part of what he got into that I liked. But it's specifically about Elevation. First, he shot on location. They went to Denver, Colorado, and they shot in the mountains because this movie's about these monsters that are like just DNA coded to kill humans on sight. There's no reasoning, no nothing. And the humans find out that the only weakness these monsters have is they can't go into higher elevation. So they start moving up into the top of the mountains, and that's where the humans try to survive to keep, the species alive. So I thought that idea was really cool, and the way he talked about it. He said it's so important to shoot on location. He's like, I know that there's so much that we can do technologically, but just being there in the environments just gets you more into what the story you're telling. And I'm like, all right. So he's writing a story now, I know, based on the fact that he wants whatever they're doing to be hopefully shot in real locations. Check. Love it. Absolutely love that for a Star Wars movie. I know Favreau's doing it a different way, and he's King Favreau. That's fine. But that was a nice check of the box for me. And then he said characters are really important for him in making sure that it's not so much delivering the first, second, third act of the story, but making sure each character you believe, I'm paraphrasing, but you essentially believe their full story and their connection with the other characters. And characters are number one for me, so check there. And then he said you can use Star Wars as a metaphor without it feeling like it's something you could also read in the newspaper. And what he meant by that is, you can send the message, sort of like George Lucas did in, Return of the Jedi, Vietnam War, all that stuff, without beating people over the head with reality. It's all there. If you don't want to see it and you want to stay on the surface, that's there for you too. But if you want to dig a little deeper, he's a big fan of telling those metaphors, and he thought that what George Lucas did for 1 through 6, he excelled at doing that. So I really liked what he had to say, and the fact that he brought up that he was doing it. Me, I love when I feel like there's too much secrecy sometimes with Lucasfilm projects. This guy hasn't even been officially announced yet, and he's like, so I am writing a Star Wars movie. I'm like, all right, man, because that's what I would say too. Like, I would not be able to not say that. So I would be, if I was being interviewed, I'd be like, by the way, I'm writing a Star Wars movie. And they're like, oh, we know. But the fact that he was open about it and the things he said have made me more inclined to see what he's doing. I was skeptical on Monday based on his track record, like I think anybody would. Now that we have him putting words to what he's going to be doing, we can actually make some sense of what direction he's going in. So I'm trending north. I'm trending in the right direction with George Nolfi being the writer. He seems to have conviction. He seems to know Star Wars from the originals to now, and I like what his focus is on. Shooting in location, but the only other thing that was a standout to me is he did mention Charmin Obaid-Chinoy. So
that's what I was going to say. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So let me hand it over to you. George Nolfi talked about Star Wars. What were your takeaways from his section of that interview?
All great points. The big thing that stood out to me is that he did bring up Charmin, because you and I have been very adamant that we're like, where is she? She hasn't talked about it.
Yeah, that's
no
all.
one's talking about her. Daisy hasn't mentioned her. It's been very kind of MIA. But he mentions her. He says, quote, meaning Lucasfilm, Disney, Charmin, the director, and then you do what a writer does, which I kind of laughed at. I was like, okay, really simplifying what you do here. But it did stick out to me that he said that, quote, try and imagine characters, and then you present it with an understanding that it needs to honor, obviously, a long, incredible tradition. And he talks about how you look at the things that came before this story and the beats that they're wanting to touch on, and then you kind of weave your story together with those things. So I think diehard fans, casual fans, any type of Star Wars fan that had whatever thoughts they had about The Last Jedi or anything in the sequel trilogy, Disney era, can know that George is coming to this seemingly with an understanding of, I need to honor what came before me and not go crazy, sharp right to a different direction. Like, he knows that this is carrying a lot of weight as the Star Wars saga with Rey. And I do like how you had brought up, John, that he was very much like, you could talk about real things, deep things, without talking about what we saw in the newspaper today.
Yes.
I think that's getting probably trickier for writers and producers and people in creative fields to not pull from those things, because we get the world seems to be getting crazier every day. But
Andor is more on the nose, and that's
oh
fine.
my gosh, it is right in your face. Yeah, you can't avoid that. But it's nice to hear that he seems very optimistic. I will say, and I know we got feedback for the episode on Monday about our thoughts on where the news is. You do have to remember that George is the third, fourth writer on this film. And that's sometimes what happens. And writers writers rotate in to take over stories and to take over productions. However, I will feel better once this film's in production. So he's saying
Yeah.
great things. I agree with him. I trust that they're making the right choice to have someone come in to write this story and give it the weight that it needs while also honoring what comes before it and eventually after. But I need to see this thing in production. And it worries me that we've gone so long not in production.
You know,
So George is seemingly great, and Daisy seems excited about it, which makes me excited. But at the same time, I'll believe it when I see it, I guess, without being too negative.
yeah, and we want this movie so much.
I cried. I cried when they
Yeah.
announced this film.
Yeah, and I think you and I both understand, and we've said this a lot in the podcast, but I think sometimes you gotta reiterate.
Yeah.
The Rey character is so important to the future of Star Wars because little kids were introduced to Star Wars through that character. And you see her in the parks and all the kids go up to her. It's so, that character is so important for the health and future of the franchise. Because those kids are going to be teenagers when this new movie comes out, and they're going to really count on those kids going back to see Rey. So, and Daisy Ridley, like, I feel like she's just getting better as an actor, and that excites me more than anything. She was great then. I remember her screen test, the torture scene,
Where
they
she's
like
crying.
released
Yeah.
it. I was like, holy cow, this kid is so good. And she was like 20 years old or whatever. And now she's older. She talks about how she is more mature. She's more, she believes in herself more. She has more confidence. And I think we're going to see Rey as a more confident Jedi too. So Daisy and Rey are sort of growing together. So I think they understand that they can't, this movie has to be made, and it has to be made well. And that's why we're getting the writer carousel, where even you see like a good writer like Damon Lindelof or Stephen Knight, it's just not working out with them. And they're just trying to make sure they have everything in place. So it makes me think like maybe they shouldn't have announced it 2 years ago, because they probably thought they were closer to a starting point than they actually were. Because now it's like I'm a little tired of hearing the same two sentences about it. We need more info. I know Japan's coming. We're 2 months away, but we all need more than it's set 15 years after the Rise of Skywalker, and Rey is starting a new Jedi Order, and she's going on an adventure. And it's like, all right. And now Daisy's probably like, guys, I'm going out there on every movie I'm promoting that I'm doing outside this. I'm saying the same two things, and these fans are probably like, shut up. But ultimately, I think this could be a very good thing. George Nolfi sold me on what he said. Now, like you said, Lacey, we got to learn more about what this story is, who's coming back. Hopefully our two friends that we talked about in the last story, and away we go on new adventures. And then hopefully, all the rest of them, Falcon, Chewie, R2, BB-8, 3PO, all of them.
I think another piece of this that I often forget, but every once in a while will pop back into my head, is that when Kathleen Kennedy did an interview, I think it was right after Celebration last year, she had said that when they look for someone to do projects with them, they know they're in for a long haul of 5 or 6 years or something like that.
Right.
Like,
Good point.
she's like, I want people to come in and stick around for a while to really develop these ideas, to be a part of the production. And, it's not an in and out, which a lot of productions are quick. Like, look at Jurassic World Rebirth. We heard about that film. They got a couple people involved. Then they were shooting it. Then they were done. Like, what was it? A month later, they were done shooting. And now it's already trailers coming out.
Yeah.
It's a machine. And I think Kathleen Kennedy has said numerous times that they want to treat these like a James Bond or something other type of big franchise, that these movies are events and they're not just another thing that gets released every other year, which is obviously very contrasting what Bob Iger has said in the past, where he's like, we're doing a Star Wars every year. We're doing this, we're doing that. And now they're like reining it back in, saying, no, we're not doing that. Because I think they realistically have come to the conclusion that you can't rush Star Wars. You need to take your time. And if the story's
Yeah.
not there, it's not going to deliver. People are not going to stick by it. And you can't just throw anything at fans with a Star Wars label on it anymore. Like, that's not going to work.
No.
You have to
Star Wars
convince
means-
fans to get right. And you have to convince fans to get back in the seats again. I think there's been a lot of people that have been turned away for whatever reason, that you need some substance. And I don't think they're rushing this, which I understand. But at the same time, I have a rush for them to get it into production just so that I know that it's happening and I don't get my feelings hurt.
Yeah, I mean, but I don't know if this helps you at all, but I don't see how this movie doesn't happen for all the
Sure.
reasons I said about Rey
Yeah.
and Daisy, and like honestly, like Daisy really like in the movies I've seen her in outside of Star Wars recently, like give her the best Star Wars script possible and she's going to crush that thing, man. So yeah, it's exciting. I'm really glad with what he said. I'm looking forward to hearing more from him, but also hearing more about this movie. So skeptical Monday based on his filmography. Now we get his bits, and now stock rising a little bit for me. So look forward to seeing where that goes. So curious what everyone else thinks. What do you let us know in the comments, or if you're on Patreon, on the Discord, or on social media. Let us know what you think about George Nolfi. Like, what do you think about his movies? What do you think about what he had to say? We want to hear from you. And now the last story, not too much to it, but Lucasfilm has a new vice president of development. The report on Culture Slate says vice president of live action development. The Lucasfilm website says vice president of development with a little bio there. But Derek Hoffman is now the vice president of development for live action. And it says at Lucasfilm, Derek will help lead the team that develops our stories for adaptation in live action. So that's TV, movies. So there we go. So Derek Hoffman, known for a bunch of things, producing X-Men Days of Future Past. That's my favorite X-Men movie. So that's a good thing. But Lacey, what do you think of this new person? This sounds similar to the role Michelle Rejwan had for a little while there. But what do you think about Derek Hoffman coming in as VP of development for live action for Lucasfilm?
Yeah, so I'm a little confused only because I think there are two Derek Hoffmans. Because the one Derek Hoffman that you've said is the one from Days of Future Past. However, there's another Derek Hoffman, which is a completely different IMDb page, which is not the one that you said, which is someone that's a lighting programmer for Ahsoka, a lighting programmer for The Mandalorian, a lighting programmer for The Book of Boba Fett, did Dune, Mindhunter,
Yeah,
Legion.
it's not that guy.
Okay, so there's just seemingly two Derek Hoffmans.
Oh no, that Derek Hoffman did do Legion. Yes. So maybe early in his career he was I think he was a runner and he was an assistant, so he probably did a lot of that stuff. But his big meat and potatoes work was he essentially worked on he was the VP of the company where he worked on all the X-Men films, including associate producer on Days of Future Past, and he spearheaded Legion for FX, and he was the executive producer of Fox's The Gifted.
Got it. Okay, so it was a little confusing because when I looked him up, I was like, there are two Hoffmans here. Because Derek Hoffman, the camera and electrical department guy that was on all these Star Wars shows, was born the year I was born. And I was like, oh, interesting. But then the one that you're saying, I was like, oh, this is a different guy. Anyway, regardless, I mean, this is a fine announcement. It's one of those things that, like, I don't know what the impact's going to be until things get rolling with him. But I think he comes from a background of kind of these pop culture-y movies and has an understanding, like his picture is him at San Diego Comic-Con, like he understands the importance of pop culture related projects, which is good, because sometimes we get people in Lucasfilm or at Disney that come from like, I don't know, like healthcare or something, that they're like, oh, so and so is now doing this, and they had no idea how to be a part of a bigger production. I know you added this to the story, so I'm interested to see like what your thoughts were in general, because mine are always with these kind of production based vice president, etc., which by the way, everybody at Lucasfilm was a vice president seemingly. I don't know what else that means, except that we've previously talked about how Rejwan stepped down and a couple people switched roles and left. Do you think this is like a new era of Lucasfilm production? Do you think he was brought in for a specific reason?
Well, his TV shows, have critical acclaim. Both lasted for multiple seasons. I think X-Men: Days of Future Past, director aside, we know what the deal is with Bryan Singer, but I think that movie really revived like X-Men after the Brett Ratner one, or X-Men: The Last Stand. Days of Future Past was so good. I mean, that movie was really, really good, and the fact that he was a producer on that is a good sign for me. But I was looking at his Lucasfilm bio, and I guess everyone gets to pick their cover photo, like their header. And like Dave Filoni has him with Rosario Dawson as Ahsoka, Carrie Beck has Hera. Derek Hoffman's is interesting. It's a screenshot of an early draft of The Empire Strikes Back. And it circles the lines. So essentially it's when Luke leaves to go help Han and Leia without finishing his training. And it's Yoda saying, "Told you I did, reckless is he, now matters are worse." And it's circled Ben saying that boy's our last hope. And then underneath that, it's "No, there is another," and the "no" is circled. So he's clearly a longtime Star Wars fan. He looks like he's probably in his late 40s or so. So he probably grew up with the original trilogy, understands the history, the legacy, what it means. He probably got into making movies just like Christopher Ford was telling us, just like everybody tells us when we interview them, like Star Wars. I watched Star Wars and I wanted to make movies. So he's clearly a fan. And I love that he chose this as his cover photo, a draft with notes on it from Empire Strikes Back. That's pretty cool. So interesting to see what his involvement is. These names aren't going to be popping around. We're not going to be hearing Derek Hoffman very often. Very often. Very often. But it's good to know and understand where these people are coming from. So now we know like what he's worked on, what he loves, clearly original trilogy stuff, and what he's all about. So I don't know what that means. We'll find out as we learn about newly announced projects, because he can help develop currently announced stuff and all that. But it's going to come down to what we hear that's coming next under his involvement as someone who Lucasfilm says is going to lead the team that develops stories into live action. So very interesting there. We'll keep an eye on that as changes happen all the time. But we'll see what Derek Hoffman brings to the table. Anything else on this one?
No, I'm ready to hear from the community.
All right, then let us get into Ask the Resistance.
I've been wondering, what are midichlorians?
That poor bird logo.
We have to change it.
No, I don't want to change it because like I remember such a fun time of Twitter.
The bird. Yeah.
Anyway, guys, this is Ask the Resistance. You have Star Wars questions. We have Star Wars answers. Bring that back for you, John. But it's now on Blue Sky. So we're taking questions over there. Make sure to follow us at TRB Podcast on all social platforms, but specifically on Blue Sky. First up is the Force Feed at theforcefeed.bluesky or bsky.social, which I really hope they get rid of that stuff soon.
Should we just say they're like the regular handle?
Yeah, so at the Force Feed. What up, Force Feed? They asked, "Do you believe Mace Windu is dead in the Mandalorian era of time? And if not, what's he been doing, John?"
Yeah, he's dead. We've talked about this before, and I know there's this like underground push for Mace Windu to come back, and Samuel L. Jackson, of course, is going to say he'd want to come back,
Yep.
but his
Yep.
death meant way too much to Anakin's fall to all of a
Yep.
sudden have like a crusty, hidden Mace Windu come rolling off out of nowhere and be back. Like, it's okay for some characters to die, and I get the irony that I was hyped about Palpatine returning, but that was that guy's plan the whole time anyway. Mace Windu was a Jedi. He fought, he beat Palpatine. If we're being honest, he had him beat, and Anakin screwed it up. So Mace Windu beat Palpatine in a lightsaber duel. Let's just make sure that is known.
Yeah.
But he had a hero's death because he never wavered. He was the one, and he seemed like an antagonist, even though we knew Anakin was going to turn. We're like, man, this guy does not like him. And that's really like irritating. But then you're like, wait, he's right. His senses are dead on. So Mace Windu deserves all the respect, but I think his death needs to remain. So I do not think he is alive. If that upsets you, the force feed, I apologize. That's just my thoughts. But Lacey, what do you think?
Yeah, not to be lame, force feed. I agree with John. I think that this character is dead. Like, there's
Why
no
is it
coming
lame
back.
to agree with John? That's what I would like to know.
I'm saying lame in the sense that we're given the same answer, not lame in the sense that your answer is bad. To clarify, Mace Windu is absolutely dead. I understand why Samuel L. Jackson wants to come back. He wants some of that Star Wars money. I get it. I understand. He was a cool character. But like you said, John, I think every time they bring back a character where, no one's really ever gone or whatever it is, it just ruins the story. Like, just let people die. It shows like the high risk, the sacrifice, the tragedy of Anakin's fall. And if you start bringing back all these people that are like, they're not really dead, then it just kind of downplays the seriousness of the situation that Anakin was willing to turn on him to save Palpatine.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't think he's coming back. Next up is Kevin at Jedi Cain, Cain on Blue Sky. What up, Kevin?
Thank you.
He asks, "What are your thoughts on Luke having a kid? I think Lucasfilm regrets extinguishing the Skywalker bloodline." You want to kick it off, John?
No, you're gonna kick that because
My thoughts on Luke having a kid are they could have gone that route, but they didn't. They could have done a lot of things. I don't know if they regret Luke having a kid. I would like to think that Lucasfilm might regret killing Ben Solo. I don't think he needed to die. I think, and I've said this so many a time, so I apologize to people that have heard this before. I don't think you could look at the sequel trilogy, the 3 movies, and not trust or root for him to turn good. Because his parents had sacrificed their own lives for him to live, Han and Leia. He was the final Skywalker bloodline. When he dies, they partially die. And then also Palpatine ultimately wins because he wiped out the Skywalkers. Like, Ben Solo was the one that kind of kept the bloodline going, that kept the I don't know, what's the word I'm looking for? A dream alive. A dream's not the right word, but the dream of the Skywalkers getting out of this tragedy that they keep getting pulled back into. And my own headcanon, I really loved the idea that in early renditions of TFA, Rey was a Kenobi, because then at the end you have Kenobi and Skywalker together again, bloodlines kind of battling each other and making it right. So where you had in the prequel trilogy, you had Anakin and Obi-Wan Kenobi have this horribly horrific, tragic scene where Kenobi thinks he's killed Anakin and, you were my brother. They're both so in different people than you meet them. To have them, Rey and Kylo in the end, be the 2 characters that are tied to that then make up, and whether you want them in love or not, but they both come to an agreement that they can both exist and save the universe together, that would have been a better story to me. And I stand by that. So I don't know if they feel bad that Luke doesn't have a kid. I think he was very much on the Jedi path. We saw him isolated on that island. That actually was George's idea, that Luke was going to be on that island. That was maybe one of the things they took from his treatment. So I don't think that he wanted a kid and or would be responsible in having a child, because he was by himself and was barely bathing. It looked like he was a hot mess. So I don't
Yeah.
see him taking care of a kid, but I do think there were other choices Lucasfilm made about the bloodline and the Skywalker lineage that they could have changed. And, you know, we were discussing with Force Center, Joseph and Ken, about Solo. And we were talking about Solo's name, specifically Han Solo, how he chose his name and how that got so much kind of dramatic response from fans. And we got into this really beautiful discussion of like how he became the name Solo. That's another reason why I think Rey should have taken the Solo name instead of Skywalker, like to carry on that idea that I'm who I make myself, not tied to anybody else. And I
Mm.
have people. It's just me, but I do have people. Yeah, those are my long-winded thoughts, Kevin. I don't know if you agree with them, but I'm interested to see what John thinks.
Yeah, if it's like Luke having a kid, but everything else was still the same, I don't see how it works, because then Luke dies and his kid doesn't have his father, and then that's just another Skywalker tragedy. And it's like, so if
Yeah.
it's Luke has a kid and the story's different, then it's like, well, then we're opening a whole different timeline. So I never really thought of it that way. I know in the Legend of Luke Skywalker book, I believe, or is it the TLJ novel where he like has dreams? It might be the TLJ novel where he had a
TLJ
dream.
novel at the
Yeah, he had a
beginning.
dream
Yep.
of having
He's
a
a
love on
wife.
Tatooine
Yep.
or something. Yeah.
Yep,
So
yep.
I don't
Cammy, I
know
think, was
that,
her name.
huh?
Cammy was her name, I think.
Yeah, I think so. At least I think that was the name of the character that was in the deleted scenes of A New Hope too. But
Mhm.
So they might regret extinguishing the Skywalker bloodline. I think I agree with that. They may also go as far as to regret killing Luke Skywalker now, honestly.
I
And
think
I
so
say that
too. Yeah, that's a good
I
point.
say that because Mark Hamill still talks about it to this day, and he does it in his joking way, but you could tell it still hurts him. Like he says, "Who knew you could die from too much of the Force? Had I known that, I wouldn't have." And it's like, oh man,
Oh my God,
So
I've never cried harder than watching Director and the Jedi and seeing Mark's like breakdowns
he was
during
having a
that
hard time with it.
documentary.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
And I still think, it was a well-told story and it took risks and I respect all that. But when I think about what the alternative could have been, which is, Luke lives and then, Leia dies trying to save her son and Luke comes in and he joins Ben and Rey to take down Palpatine. And then Luke gets to live as a hermit the rest of his life and he just dies an old man. And then if the, like you were saying, I mean, tangent city this episode, but this is when you love Star Wars, this is what you do. The Rey Kenobi thing, like how much other Star Wars would have changed with that. The Kenobi series would
Yeah.
have probably involved a love story and it would have
Yeah.
involved a potential,
Which we don't know what the story was, because originally the Kenobi was a movie that then
right.
was tied in with the Solo stuff that then
Right.
changed again. I would love to know what the original story was there, because I think both Daisy Ridley and JJ had hinted and or said that she was a Kenobi. Like that was the plan. That's why she was British.
Right. Yeah. And if you look at the timeline, it's possible that she could have been his granddaughter or something like that. And
Yeah.
I mean, Star Wars is very intimate, even though it's this vast galaxy. Like a lot of characters know each other, so
Well, then that would
it wouldn't
explain
be
the
that crazy.
connection
Yeah,
between her and
exactly.
Kylo, the Force
Yeah.
connection, because Anakin and Kenobi were so connected that, like, it would make sense that they were also connected because the Force was bringing them back together to fix the tragedy that had
Yeah.
happened so many years prior. Like, I just look at that and I'm not a brilliant writer. I'm not that creative. I get that. But I look at it and I'm like, all these things are pointing to this story. I don't know why it wasn't told. And that's my biggest gripe, I think. Obviously,
Yeah,
outside of Luke dying, I don't think Luke should have died either.
yeah. In retrospect, I like just daydream about that possibility of Luke not dying in The Last Jedi
Yeah.
and then
Yeah.
coming back in The Rise of Skywalker and doing all that stuff and then dying off screen as an old hermit, happy like Yoda under the blanket sort of thing.
I would have
Um,
loved him and Rey together, where she's like this optimistic person and he's just like grumpy, like, oh, you don't even know what's coming. And she's like, we've got this, Luke. And he's like, oh, God. Like, I want that dynamic.
Well, yeah, and then by Rise of Skywalker, he's, or by the end of TLJ, he becomes Luke again in a sense, and then
Yeah.
in the Rise of Skywalker, we would have the Luke we love. He's older, but he's the Luke we love, and maybe he cuts his hair, does a little Just for Men, and he's back in action, just like at the end of TLJ. But
Mhm.
I think that's the regret. I don't think it's, oh, well, should Luke have had a kid so we can still kill Luke and keep it going? I don't think that's the path for Luke. I think if there is regret, it is we probably shouldn't have killed Luke Skywalker. It was a bold choice. Respect for taking that bold choice, but in retrospect and adding to Mark Hamill's feeling about it, I think maybe there is some regret there because there's clearly some lingering sadness on Mark Hamill's part still to this day.
And fans.
And I wonder what George Lucas thinks about that too. But now we're going down a rabbit hole. We have another question to get to.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so our last question for this episode will be from BatFet at BatFet. What up, BatFet? Asks, many of the
name.
characters in Andor are well developed and nuanced. John loves the word nuanced. I'm particularly drawn to Dedra. Is there any post-show material that references the character, or should we expect her demise in season 2? What are your predictions for her arc, John?
I don't think there is anything about Dedra after Andor. And I think she's dying. I think a lot of the characters that we don't see in Rogue One are going to meet their demise. I think Luthen is going to die. He's going to have a spectacular hero death that's going to make people weep. And he'll probably say something like, I finally see my sunset. One of those lines.
Yeah. Tony Gilroy's like, please don't. Please stop.
But Dedra, I think, is also dying, and it's gonna come at the hands of Orson Krennic. He's coming back. We know that he doesn't like when people go against him and Tarkin. I think he's going to either kill her himself, which would be even cooler, or he's going to set her up in a trap where she gets killed, and it's at his order. I think that is 100% happening. It adds more to Orson Krennic's legacy, and I think fans, she's one of those space Nazis that people are going to be like, yeah, she got hers, She is a
I thought she was going to get beat in the first season when she was getting knocked down. Oh my God, yeah.
Yeah, so it's coming. I don't know about Cyril. He may like do that sort of
fade into the
like
crowd,
that,
I think.
Like that guy in TFA who's like, even Hux is gone. Let's get out of here. Like, I could see him being a little weasel.
I'm sorry,
who
what
runs
was
away
that?
to mommy. You know that guy?
No, just do it again one more time.
Oh, well. Even Hux is gone. Let's get out of here. He's running. Yeah, he's running. Yeah, all those other guys are like, stand by. Like, all right. But I think I could see him Cyril weaseling back to mom and his cereal, and them hiding in the witness protection program of the galaxy. But Dedra, dead. She has done enough damage to Bix, to other people. She is cold. She's heartless. She is a space Nazi through and through. She's going to get hers, and it's going to be as delightful as seeing the faces melting in Raiders of the Lost Ark. And I think Orson Krennic's going to do it. Hopefully it's himself, because we know he gets his later too. But either way, he's going to be involved with taking her out. Lacey, what do you think?
Yeah, I agree with you. Not to be lame again, and agree with you.
What is
I'm saying in the sense of like giving the same answer. Like, I don't have some other explanation. I agree with everything that you said. I think there is no other materials about her. Tony Gilroy and I think Lucasfilm in general are pretty close knit on the Andor characters, and they don't want to give a lot away. Plus, it kind of closes off any other writing ideas when someone else is writing a parallel book to you or a comic or whatever. You might see stuff from her later after the show is wrapped, but I don't think they're going to go near those characters right now. They're kind of safe in their own little box. I agree that she's going to die in a crazy, crazy way because she's just so evil and so terrible. And you see her torture people in the first season that
Yeah.
like the audience needs the payoff to have that Star Wars hope that things are going to get better, that the good guys are going to win. You have to see her die in a terrible way.
Yeah. Yep.
Because friendly reminder, not really friendly, but she tortured Bix with the sounds of children dying. Like that's how Bix died. Like didn't die, but was tortured to basically mind-numbingness
Yeah.
was because she was listening to children creatures dying. That's just gruesome for so many different ways.
She's like she's a like delightfully perfect villain. Like she's so easy to hate. you know?
Yes. Yeah. And so righteous in all the terrible things that she does. So yeah, I will fist pump the air when she eats it and
like
dies.
it's gonna be hard pressed to get a worse death than Krennic, who literally got the Death Star like through his eyeball.
But he didn't die like a crazy way though. Like he just waited for his death to come, kind of like Jin and Cassian did. Spoiler
Oh,
alert.
sure, but it was satisfying.
Sure. I'm
Yeah.
saying she's gonna like get eaten by something, run over, like something's gonna happen.
Oh yeah, yeah. Or maybe,
yeah.
or if not Krennic, maybe Bix gets a little revenge.
I think Bix will get revenge, but all
Yeah.
these characters have to die because they have to tie up some loose ends
Exactly.
here.
Yeah.
Except Mon Mothma, obviously.
No, Mon Mothma just has to ditch
Run.
the facade and put
Get your
her
kid.
white blanket
Get
on,
your-
her white
yep.
sheet. Yeah.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah.
That's it. Thanks for your questions, guys. Make sure to follow us on social at TRB Podcast to be a part of the show next time. Or you can head over to patreon.com/TRB Podcast there, message us on email, etc. And you can make it on the show.
Yeah. And it doesn't have to be when we call for questions. We will look for them. So pop a question on Blue Sky at any point using hashtag #AskTheResistance. We'll find it. We'll get it on the show. And yeah, to echo what Lacey said, thank you all very much. And that's it. Thank you for listening and watching and being a part of TRB. It means such a great deal to us. We did all the plugs. The last thing we have to do is give a special thank you to our generals and spice runners holding it down in the base for us. And this guy who's been with us since we launched Patreon, General Carmelo. Hope you're doing well, buddy. Hope to see you soon. Then we got John RISI, who's been around forever, Jeddah, Frank Grande, Nick Kratz, Chris Morales, Brian Smith, Danny, Mike Ramori, Brendan McLaughlin, Sneaky Zebra, Dave Hornack, Jolton Jedi DiMaggio, Colin Cormier, Stephen Garrow. He asked us a question that we didn't get to today, so maybe we'll get to it next time.
Sorry,
It's pretty
Stephen.
funny. Sachi and Darth Snips and the Spice Runners, David Probus, Neil Shah, Kendall Gelner, Andrew Staley, Jeremy Myers, and the Fort Worthian, and all of our patrons, all the resistance, or if you're a casual listener of TRB, however, thank you so much. It really means a lot to the two of us. The real world and day-to-day life of being parents and having day jobs and stuff, being able to do this podcast, it always, like Lacey, I've told you, and I know you feel the same. Every time after we record, it's like a serotonin shot or something. Like I'm always feeling good when I walk back upstairs, and it's like a weekly therapy session in a weird way. So thank you all so much for allowing us to do this podcast, to allow
You guys make me feel smart for an hour each week. For 1 hour, I am a smart person about Star Wars.
And I'm better looking than Pedro Pascal. So there you go.
Sure.
No, I said that on a Patreon video, and now I've just released it to the world. But another thing we have to bring up, the awesome Force Center crew. We were on with Ken and Joseph, and they hosted us to talk about why we love Solo. And I'm not sure when they're releasing that, but keep an eye out.
I don't know
for
why
that.
they would do that.
Yeah, why would they want to talk about Solo with us,
Such a weird choice.
We talked for over an hour with them, and we just honestly scratched the surface, but it was a really fun chat, an awesome time celebrating Solo. So look for it on Force Center, and we'll share it on social media to make sure you see it. But a really great chat, and we thank both of them and Jennifer, who we haven't had a chance to hop on with. But they're a great crew over there, and thanks for having us on. And we had them on Galactic Goonies, and I'm sure we will meet again, obviously in real life, but also podcast form. So check that out. For me, Johnny Hoey on Blue Sky, and that's basically the spot, really, for now for me. My movie podcast, Just Like the Movies, we're doing No Country for Old Men next, which I just watched for the first time recently. I can't believe how
I've
good
never
that
seen
movie
it.
is. Unbelievable. Matt probably likes it.
Mm.
It feels like it might be a Matt movie. But Lacey, where can people hit you up to talk about all these things we talked about today?
People can find me on social media at Lacey Gilleran and on TikTok at It's Lacey Gilleran. Yeah, talking about Star Wars and other pop culture stuff. But yeah, definitely Star Wars. And I am so hyped that we're now into single months till Celebration, which we will be taking you guys along on our journey. We're going to Disney a couple days. It's going to be wild. Just so excited to experience that culture, that country. It is a life bucket list trip, and that's honestly due to all of your support of us, of the podcast, for almost 8 years now. Oh my goodness. I wouldn't be living the life I live right now without you guys, so thank you so much. And we can't wait to see what this year brings. We've been working like crazy on merch and stuff, so stay tuned for that. It's coming up in the next week or so.
Yeah, and if you're going to Celebration, come find us, say hi to us. I think we're going to be spending a lot more time on the show floor this year than years past, where it was more hustle bustle. We just want to kind of get.
We're focusing on the experience,
Yeah, and we'll be probably doing some fun stuff, filming and stuff like that. But yeah, and then for Nerdy and Nice, that's all thanks to you all as well. We'll be back with a great episode on Monday where we're going to talk about the Jurassic World trailer, a lot of the other news going on with Superman, pop culture, all that stuff. And then TRB will be back with you all next Thursday to talk about maybe a discussion, maybe some segments, maybe some news. But either way, we'll always be here for you. So have a great weekend. Enjoy the Super Bowl if you are. I hate both teams.
Let us know your snacks. I always like to hear people's snacks.
Snacks are good. Snacks. What kind of wings do you like? Let us know all that stuff. But we hope you have a great weekend. Be safe, be well, and we'll see you next time right here on the Resistance Broadcast. See you around, kids.